And the other thing I would say along with that is, along with building my brand, I learned the art of connecting with the right people, within and out external of the organization, right? That's huge. Finding those people that were like-minded, that even saw something in me in my earlier days that says, we see something in you, and let me help you walk through, let me help you bust through this door here, right? And I appreciate those folks today. As a woman in this industry, that became very important for me. As a woman of color in this industry, that became extremely important for me. To make sure that I connected, with good colleagues and good leaders that would help me move along that road, or I call that yellow brick road, where I didn't get off path, until I got to Oz. And I may not have arrived at Oz yet, but I'm on the right path. Because I had, the good witches and the Tin Man and the Lion and all of them alongside me, pushing me along.
Welcome to the RockstarsRocking podcast, powered by Voluntary Disruption, a show dedicated to people who are crushing their business and life goals. These are bite-sized conversations with leading rock stars in their respective industry who are pumped to share their story to help drive you to the next level. So, are you ready to rock? Speaking of rock stars, here's your host, Eric Silverman.
Hey, rock stars, welcome back to another episode of RockstarsRocking. Well, you know it. I only have the best, the most powerful, the most influential rock stars you could ever imagine in the employee benefits insurance world, and then some other industries to boot. And let me tell you, this week's no different. Everybody help me welcome my good friend, Lisa Hutcherson. Lisa, what's up?
Hey there, Eric. How are you?
Man, I am living the dream. As I said to you earlier, if I was any better, I'd be you. And that's hard to be you. So I want everybody on the who's listening and kind enough to listen to the show to learn about you, because you're just doing some incredible things. You and I met many years ago. We have a lot in common, both industry-wise, carrier-wise, company-wise, background-wise. But you've gone into a whole lot of other directions that I haven't gone into. Some of them I don't know that I could go into, and we'll save that for a few minutes. So if you don't mind, I want to just dive right in and start asking you some questions I've been really dying to know. Is that all right with you?
Fantastic. Let's go for it.
So let me ask you this, right? You're a little girl growing up in life. Was your dream to get into the employee benefits in the insurance industry? Like, did you grow up and say, Mama, Papa, Grandma, Grandpa, right? Did you say, I want to sell insurance when I get older? Is that what came out of your mouth? Because it damn sure didn't come out of my mouth. Tell me how you got into the insurance business.
Absolutely not. No, I actually wanted to be a mechanical engineer, believe it or not, and an architect.
Insurance, same things, very similar.
Yeah, whatever. And I actually ended up in the industry years ago because of a family situation. Actually, I'm the oldest of 7 kids, and the sister right next to me was diagnosed with AIDS back during its time where they were still trying to figure out what to do, how to treat the disease. And unfortunately, she passed at the age of 24 years old, shortly after her 5-month-old son passed with the same disease that they called pneumonia at the time. But it was the beginnings of HIV and then full-blown AIDS for her. And unfortunately, it was a season in my family where my dad thought that he had insurance on all of his kids. And he pulled out the paperwork. My dad's old school, so he had everything in a briefcase, right? All of his papers in this old leather briefcase. And he pulls the briefcase out, and I'm looking through all of the paperwork for him, and I'm reading these old yellow paper insurance policies. And I thought, oh my God, none of us are covered. I said, Dad, we all fell off at 22. And the look on my father's face just broke my heart, because here we have a family member now, one of his children, that we need to bury now, and we have no coverage. And it was at that moment that I said, this is not good. Why didn't the insurance person ever call him back? Why didn't they ever follow up with him to make sure that we were good, that he was good? And no one ever did that for him. And so long story short, we, the funeral, the services come and go. And I watched my dad put her funeral arrangements or the payments on a payment plan, on what I call the layaway. And when it's a layaway plan, that means you've got to pay for it every month. And so every month he had to revisit the death of his daughter until it was paid off, unfortunately. So I decided then that would never happen again. And this was all very personal for me, why I got into the industry. And that I said, I'm going to make sure that no family member of mine ever has to do this again. So let me figure out how to get into the industry. And that's how I jumped on board into mainly what we call back then the financial services industry, where my focus became life insurance. And my target audience, my target market were young couples, young people fresh out of college, newly married, to make sure that they had the right coverage that they needed.
I got you. Yeah, I mean, look, it's interesting because I don't hear it every time, but I think you would agree that a lot of our colleagues in all facets of the insurance world, a lot of them have a similar story, not exactly the same, but a similar personal touch, right? Like in my case, I can assure you, I never was that little kid that said, Daddy, I want to sell insurance. Like that never came out of my mouth. But I just happened upon an internship. I did well, made some money, started selling. And, it's interesting because, my personal story was my mom had passed away. She was diabetic. She had cancer. She was a smoker. She was overweight. It is what it is. But the reality is I started to quickly develop a passion for the benefits world, because as I was helping people, I truly could see back in time, I'd look back in time to realize how some of the policies and a lot of the stuff that I do for my clients, just like you, could have very much benefited my dad and my family, my mom. So I love when there's a personal connection, because let's be honest, it gives a new meaning to the word conviction too. Like, let me ask you that. Like, let's go into that area. Like, when you're representing a product or a service, and we'll talk about it too. You're a keynote speaker. You've been professionally trained and certified with John Maxwell. But when you're speaking on a topic or quote unquote selling something, do you think having conviction about your product or service or what you're talking about on stage, do you think that is important, and does it matter?
Oh, absolutely. It matters. I think people, I often tell people, and I really do believe this, that your conviction comes with feeling. It comes with authenticity. You're transparent, when there's conviction there, right? When it's personal, there's conviction, and people see that, they feel that, they hear that. And so where they may not hear a word that I say in some cases, it's how I made them feel when I walk off that stage. It's how I may have made them think, or my hope and prayer always is that I leave you with something that will make you move, change, transition, transform, whatever that looks like. Not my call, but whatever I say, I hope it comes from a place that moves you into action. Right? It moves you to do something and make a change. So absolutely, I think that's very important. Even in the sales process, when we're selling a product, people often would say, how much money do you want to make? I said, well, I'm not immune to making money. I'm not going to lie and say that that's not important. However, in some ways it's not important. What's important is that I provide good coverage, and that I provide people with a service that's good for them, something that they're going to use. Aflac has this saying, we got you under your wing. Others have their own little mottos and their sayings, you're in good hands, with Allstate, whatever that is. I always want to make sure that whatever service or sales service product that I'm providing, that it is going to meet their needs long term. And so people would always say when I first got into the industry, they go, oh, you know, do you want to win the contest? You know, do you want to go on the trip? And, you know, how much money do you want to make? I said, you know what, all that stuff's fun and dandy. I love to travel. I'm not immune to a trip to Greece or something like that. However, if I help enough people, all of that comes.
Sure.
If I help enough people, the money will come. If I help enough people, the trips will come. All that follows as a result of the service that I provide.
Yeah, I mean, look, I couldn't agree more, and that's always been my philosophy. I'm going to end up butchering the quote, so I'm not going to try to quote it exactly, but it reminds me of what Zig Ziglar used to say that he was famous for. You know, if you want to, basically, if you want to do well, you just have to help more people. You know, get what they want, and you'll get what you want. Again, I didn't try to quote it. I don't need any hate comments. Everybody's always willing to put a little comment. You messed that up, Eric. I know I messed it up. I'm telling you, I messed it up.
You're just being authentic. You're just coming from your heart.
That's right. That's right. But if you Google it, Zig Ziglar quotes, you'll find it. And it is exactly what we just talked about. So talk about this for a second, you know, because you have been doing a lot of public speaking and coming up in the next couple of months, as of when we're recording this, that is in 2023, you're going to be emceeing the Women Leadership Summit in I want to say California. No, it's
Las Vegas.
Sorry, see, I'm messing up. So it's in Vegas. There's so many people that are at that event that are friends and colleagues, many of whom have also been just like you right here on the Rockstars Rocking podcast. Talk about how the speaking and the MCing came together. Like, what's going on?
You know, first of all, this group, Elevate Women in Leadership, this summit, this is now the third year that they've done it. You know, COVID kind of put I
want to come. I need an invite, an honorary invite. I'll wear a dress.
Well, I tell you what,
am I allowed to say that? I'm not allowed to say that. I'm sorry.
You can be a part of the Mars squad, and those are where our men that support us and support the women in our industry. Absolutely, there's a place for you as well to be at that event. But it started when they had their very first one. I actually was asked to do a workshop on one of the days. They had a breakout session, and I was one of the breakout sessions. And it was one of those moments for me where I really and mine was on self-care. And so I'm going, well, how do I spin this? You know, I'm always trying to take a topic and spin it to make it my own, right? And I said, well, you know, part of self-care is being true to who you are, being true to you. And I was able to share my truth in those sessions. And I talked a lot about my upbringing as a kid in St. Louis, Missouri, where I was born and raised part of my life. And then in Chicago, but more than that, my upbringing in the industry as a woman, as an African-American woman in this industry. What does that look like for me? You know, some of the things that I struggled with and how was I able to bust through many of those walls or I call bust through boxes that people tried to place me in along the way. And I think for some of my sisters who don't look like me, some of that was a little eye-opening, it was a nervous time for me, because I'm going, how do I speak to my colleagues and peers about something that I've been carrying for a really long time that may be uncomfortable to talk about? And we did that, and it felt liberating and it felt free. And I said, that's part of self-care, is being who you are, being able to live in your own skin and be comfortable in that, and not being afraid.
It's not easy for most people. You know that. We know that.
Yeah. That's right. And we work in an industry where we're constantly on the platform and on stage. So that's where it began for me. And then the next year they asked me to be their opening keynote, which was last year. And it was an amazing time. And so I got invited back again this year by the committee to be their very first MC for their event. So I can't wait.
Look at that. I love it. DJ MC Hutcherson. That's your new name. DJ MC Hutcherson.
Oh, I tell you what.
And
Well,
you love music, so it's perfect.
I do. I absolutely do. Yes, my DJ name was Lisa E. So,
See? And you were a DJ. I forgot. That's true. So DJ Lisa E in the house in Vegas in a couple of months, again, as of the time of this recording here in January 23. So let me ask you this, and I want to talk about some of the new things you're working on, some of the things you're doing that I find spectacular. But talk about recent adversity that you've had to go through. Like, everybody has stories from their youth in various shapes and forms, and I'm sure you do as well. And you can mention those too, but talk about business adversity. Talk about over the last handful of years, before, during, and after COVID, what's happened with you in your world, and what that's taught you, and if or how that's made you hopefully even a stronger person.
Absolutely. Well, leading up to COVID, I spent many years working for a company, one of, a large voluntary benefits company. And I worked in pretty much every facet on the sales side, and then going corporate, for, 5 or 6 years. And one of the things I loved about that world is that I was able to touch on many aspects of what we do in the insurance industry, both on the sales side, the leadership side, meaning building teams and growing and developing people and all of that, to working really in a community, what we call today brokers, or our broker community. When I started in the industry years ago, I was told to run from that group of people, that people group. But I found later that, these are folks that are diving in the same sandbox that I'm diving in. Why would I run from them?
Sure.
Why can't we build the sandcastle together? And so once I left that company, I stepped into 2 pretty much kind of startup companies that were very different than the voluntary world, different products, different language. And though it was a scary time, it was actually, I embraced it because it was something new. One of the things called me crazy. I do like change. Most people don't, but I love change when it's productive change, right? When I'm going to grow from the change, when I'm going to learn something from the change. And so, I've worked in 2 what we call POS companies, or point of sale or point solution companies, or in my voluntary world, we would call them value-added services company, where they bring value and add to the employee benefit space. And they were companies and products that were very new to me, and I would never I wouldn't change it, to be honest with you. Though I'm no longer with those companies, I wouldn't change it for the world. One of the things that I encourage people to always do is to try something new. Step out of the box, step out into the unknown. And though it may be scary, God, the things we learn, not only about ourselves, but the things we learn in the industry, always, stretching our brains and stretching ourselves into new, I don't want to sound like Star Wars or Star Trek, into the unknown, space stuff, but it really is the unknown that we get to step into and tap into. And so I learned a lot, though, in these last few years, external of the voluntary world that I was accustomed to. I went, wow, I didn't realize that this was a need out here. Ambulatory services, I didn't know that was a need. I didn't understand the scope and breadth of bills that people get. I learned about Surprise Billing Act. I was forced to learn some of the legislative things that are coming out in our country today, where a lot of times we huddle down in our bubbles, and we never step out of those bubbles and go, oh my God, there's a whole nother world out here concerning employee benefits, because all we know is this one thing.
Yeah. I too, and I'll end up butchering it. And hopefully we get this clip set up for public distribution. But I like what you said about how you embrace change for the most part. And, to me, what I heard was, as long as it's sensible change, it makes logical sense. And ultimately, you can see the big picture. And a lot of people look at the short game. Sounds like you're looking more at the long game. So I think that's pivotal. And, the reality is I'm a big risk taker when it comes to business, not when it comes to my personal life. I'm not a guy that gets on a roller coaster. That ain't me.
Right.
I'm risk averse. I sell insurance for a living. Let's just be honest.
Right.
But when it comes to business, I've never been one to shy away from taking a risk. Spending some money, investing in something, investing in people is huge to me.
Yes.
But moreover, even investing in, with everybody's most precious asset, and that's our time. So I'm never afraid or shy to take time to invest and learn. And I really love and respect how you did that. You came from a long background with a carrier, and you decided to take a risk, take a chance. Notably, I'm sure they took a risk and chance on you too,
Right.
but you took a risk, you took a chance on a couple different startup-esque type companies. And it panned out for a period, and then it didn't. No big deal. But now you're excited and super pumped for your next opportunity. Now, let me ask you this: do you think the fact that during your original 20-year career with one carrier, and the fact that you started building your own personal brand, do you believe that your personal brand helped you land those new roles and is helping you land other speaking opportunities and land the ability to be a keynote at last year's Women's Summit and MC this year's and everything in between? Do you think personal branding is important?
Absolutely. Hands down, you know, and I take that I mean, no pun intended, personally. Yes, it is very important. You know, people often ask me, you know, what makes me different? What sets me apart? What, if someone asked you, Erica or Lisa, tell me about Lisa Hutcherson, I'd say, you know, probably one of two main things. One is that I do what I say I'm going to do, and I follow through. Simple. You know, if I say I'm going to be there, I'm there. If I say I'm going to take care of it, I'm going to take care of it. If I say I'm going to call you back, I do.
Sure.
And so, you know, that's a part of my name. That's who I am. And so representing any company or organization where that doesn't happen, it definitely impacts who I am, because my name is attached, right? And so, yeah, I think it has. Yeah. So working with, you know, with brokers and people, if they say, listen, can you come and inspire us, or can you come and speak on this topic or touch on this? Absolutely. And so what I do, and I think what's helped in my personal brand is part of my madness or my thought process before I go in front of anybody, any group or person, individual or group, it doesn't matter. I really give a lot of thought to the people or person that I'm sitting in front of, or that I'm getting ready to spend some time with. You know, because as I said to you earlier, Eric, I want to walk away knowing that I made a difference. I want to walk away knowing that I left them with something, you know, even if it was just a crumb of something. That they can chew on or let marinate in their spirit or in their brains for the next day or hour, whatever time frame that is. I want to leave knowing that I did my job, right? And I did it well.
I mean, look, I look back at what I did in my earlier days. You know, I always say I'm a, you know, I make the joke, not so joking. I say, my name's Eric and I'm a recovering carrier rep. You and I are similar. And here's the thing. Nobody cries for me. I did very well. I made quite a bit of money. I like to think I helped a lot of people. But the reality is I didn't have a personal brand. When I left that carrier world, my brand was that brand. I was associated. They were one and the same. I didn't have a name. I was just the local guy for that carrier. And then it's turned into a national guy because I did a bit of a volume. If I could turn back the hand in time, I wouldn't change my career path. I'm very grateful. But what I would do is I would have spent the latter part of those years, sooner the better, building my personal brand.
Yeah.
Because when I left and I had to start literally from nothing, I mean, I was a big fish in a small pond then. And I realized really quickly I was a very small fish in a very large pond, and nobody knew who I am and nobody cared. And what the trips and awards and money I made in my former years meant nothing to anybody. So my advice to anybody listening, and I want this to be more about you, but I would hope you would agree with this because you did it well, is work on, if you're an employee now, whether you're W-2, whether you're a 1099 contractor, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. I would not so much lean heavily on your current company brand as much as you create and build your own company brand personally, even if it's from within a company, because not really if, but when something happens and a light bulb goes off and you want to make a change, or they unfortunately want you to make a change, having that personal brand is paramount. And we talked about it before we hit record, that when you're on the job market and looking for something new, companies, good companies, quality companies want to associate their brand with your brand, particularly if it's already built, because it comes with a borrowed trust. It comes with that credibility that's from within. So, and kudos to you, because with all seriousness, you figured it out while you were at the carrier before I did. When I left, I literally started with nothing and then took the last many years to build it up. I like to think I've done an okay job, but boy, would have been better if I had a head start. If I could go punch old Eric in the face, I would do it.
I tell you, yeah, I think that's huge, and kudos to you for what you have done, Eric. I mean, look at you, man. I mean, Rockstar talking about it.
Me, like I said, you did it. You did it properly, and I just hope people listening take that.
And the other thing I would say along with that is, you know, along with building my brand, you know, I learned the art of connecting with the right people. You know, within and out external of the organization, right? You know, that's huge. You know, finding those people that were like-minded, that even saw something in me in my earlier days, that says, you know, we see something in you, and let me help you walk through, let me help you bust through this door here, right? And I appreciate those folks today. You know, as a woman in this industry, that became very important for me. As a woman of color in this industry, that became extremely important for me. You know, to make sure that I connected, you know, with good colleagues and good leaders that would help me move along that road, or I call that yellow brick road, where I didn't get off path, you know, until I got to Oz. And I may not have arrived at Oz yet, but I'm on the right path. You know, because I had, you know, the good witches and the Tin Man and the Lion and all of them alongside me, pushing me along.
Even the bad witches you can learn from. Look,
even the bad witches. That's right.
I learned so much about what not to do in leadership and growth just by having some really not so good mentors, quote unquote, mentors over the years. But here's the funny thing, and I think you could appreciate this, and a lot of people probably can as well. I didn't know it at the time. So my not so good mentors, they were at the time, they were, you know, and I'm going to use this term, nobody get offended. They were very godlike. They were very like, you know, oh my gosh, I want to be that person. And it just took a long time, sadly too long, but it took me many years before a light bulb switched and it realized that, you know, that's not the person that I want to be. I don't aspire to be that person. And there is a better way to get to the end result that we're all looking for with respect to success and helping people within business and certainly family. So let me ask you this. Did you have, prior to your insurance world and certainly during, did you have one, and you don't have to call them out, doesn't matter to me, but did you have at least one or two or three mentors, male, female, black, white, I don't care their denomination, but did you have any mentors that really helped you, that you were, that without them, you don't think you'd be the woman that you are today?
Absolutely. Yes, I did. All along the way, actually. I called them my board of directors early on.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, they were my board of directors. These were people that I allowed to speak into my life. They earned that right, first of all. You know, everyone thinks that they have that right to speak to you in a certain kind of way or in your life, but that's an earned deal. And so these were people that I respected, I trusted, that even if they said hard things to me, that they only had my best interests in mind. And what's funny is that you would ask that. I just reconnected with two of my very, very first mentors, an African-American man who was one of the first in a company called the Equitable back in the 70s. First Black man to own his own agency with them, and a woman named, her name's Claudette, his name's Henry Swan and Claudette Bullock. They're both in Illinois, and she was an African-American woman, and they're both retired now, but wow, the things I learned from those two folks. And I just reconnected with them in the last 4 months in person, got to have lunch and dinner with each of them. And then they look at me and say, wow, you're still the daughter we never had. But more than that, they both have 2 sons, you know, in their lives, and no girls. And so, and they go and to watch you grow and bloom. But since then, along this way, I've had to have others come alongside me who didn't look like me, right?
Sure.
Men and women. And I've been in this, oh, wow, whew, what a treat when I think about the roles that these folks have played in my life. You know, the Serena Jensens and Michael Naumans and Cindy Santangelo, Susan Combs, and gosh, Paul Wilson over at Benefit Pro, all these people that have now have
You just
been,
named all my favorites.
I know that, you know, Nelson Griswold, all these people that are now part of my tribe that I have met along the way. And I know I'm missing some people, but you know who you are if you're watching this, right?
Oh,
yeah, you know who you are, but there's been so many. But I tell you what, they opened doors for me. They walked me through boardrooms and set me down at tables, to be quite frank, Eric, that I probably wouldn't have been able to do on my own. Right.
Sure.
And it's not because I'm a female and not because I'm Black, right, or an African American. It's because I was skilled and I was qualified. And they saw that and they said, you know what, you should be doing more. Pushed me through and said, go have at it, do your thing, and have encouraged me. And the treat and the blessing behind it all for me is I've been able to say to a lot of them today, I remember the first time we met and how intimidated I was. I remember the first meeting and table we sat at and how scared I was. I remember when I didn't know what a freaking PEPM was, and I had to Google it because I was too embarrassed to ask in the room what it was, what it meant, right? And
for those listening, if you're not quite sure, PEPM is per employee per month. Sorry.
Exactly. No, I'm glad you did that because that's exactly.
I would assume anybody listening to this show has got to know what that means, but you never know.
You never know, because I sat in that room and I'm going, and I just smiled because I was taught to, you know, just fake like you know what's going on, and then you go figure it out afterwards.
Until you make it.
Then fake it until you make it. But you know, there were many mentors and coaches and people that have come alongside since then that have really showed me some things that I never thought I would see in this industry. Kindness that taught me some things. I got to see from a different set of lenses in many ways, but on the other hand, I've been able to share with them some stuff and allow them to see through my lens as well. So it's been a reciprocal kind of thing. And so when I talk about my relationships and with people in the industry that go deep and far and wide, and that's because we've allowed ourselves to go there in conversation, not just about business, but personally as well. And not that we have to make friends and be all lovey-dovey and kumbaya with everybody that we meet. But the treat in this industry is that, yeah, sometimes you do have those kumbaya moments. And yeah, sometimes you do have those people that you can take it a little bit further with and talk about some things and enlighten them, right? As well as be enlightened. And so, yeah, the coaches and mentors I've had along the way have been tremendous. And for people listening, if you don't have that, if you don't have your own board of directors, people that you can surround yourself with, that could speak truth to you, that could speak into your life, both personally and in business, that if you're going down a path, when I start looking for a job or different career path or whatever, there are people that I'll go to and say, what do you think? Tell me about this, right? How, you know, who do you know there? You know, what's your thoughts there? And each one of them play a different role. They have a different way of looking at things, which is what I love. I love the diversity in my board of directors. You know, they all, you know, I have those that are ultra spiritual and I have those who are not, and that's all right. Right. Sometimes I need people to just speak a certain way to me so that I can hear it.
Yeah. I mean, I think the diversity of your internal board of directors and mentors is key. My advice, and I think you'd agree, I think you just said it, is you can't surround yourself with yes men or yes women or yes people.
No.
It's got to be folks of different walks of life, different nationalities, different skin color, different gender. I mean, otherwise, if all you want is to be surrounded by people that tell you that you're right every time, God bless it. That's fine. It's going to be a great boost to your ego. It really will. Right. But that's not going to help you soar, at least not in my opinion. Look,
No.
as we
Before,
wrap up, oh, go
real
ahead.
quick, can I
Yeah,
add one more thing? I
yeah,
tell people often, if I'm the smartest person in the room, that's not a good thing. You
correct.
know, I try to put myself around people all the time that are smarter than me.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more. Look, as we wrap up, I couldn't help but mention, I know you told me a while back that you've been working on some books. You have 2 books that you're going to get published soon,
Yep.
if not already, Living Beyond the Walls, and one called Spoken Words. And then you have another one you're already working on called Unexpected.
Yes.
My God, I mean, that's a lot of work. To do one book, and you got 2 you're about to put out there. Plus, you're already working on your 3rd. I guarantee the 4th and 5th are already back in your brain, ready to
Already.
go. Why that though? Tell me why. And you don't have to go specific details, but in the last few minutes we have, tell me why you wanted to put out some books.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I've been writing for a really long time. I've loved writing since I was a kid.
And by the way,
And
for those not understanding or knowing, Lisa's not shy to writing. She's been published in some of the biggest magazines and trade publications in our industry. She's been featured in Benefits Pro, Cal Broker Magazine. She was even featured in Black Enterprise and Essence Magazine. That's 2 separate magazines. So just the author of a book or 2 or 3 is certainly a natural extension, but I wanted to pause, make sure folks knew that this wasn't like a new hobby you just picked
oh,
up.
no, not at all. Thank you for that, Eric. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so Living Beyond the Walls kind of became a thing. My father, my biological father, was imprisoned, actually. He didn't raise me, but he was a part of my life. And it was behind the walls. And I met him when I was in my mid-teens. But behind the prison walls is where he really affirmed me, because he was a businessman, just a businessman for the wrong stuff, right? I chose to take another path in my life, but the genes don't lie. What's genetic is genetic. And so he affirmed for me behind the prison walls that you're going to be great. You're going to get better in this craft as you get older. And he said, you won't be able to help yourself. It's who you are. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so as years passed and came and gone and came and went, he was right. Now, my father's passed on now, but he was absolutely right. I have gotten better, and I finally was able to embrace it, but it was behind the walls that he was able to tell me some things about myself, right? As a woman, and a woman in business, as an entrepreneur. And so I titled my book Living Beyond Those Walls, because there were walls that were created for me by others that I allowed to be there. And there were walls I created myself that we all do. We all put our own walls up, so there are walls that are imposed and some self-imposed upon us. And so, I've been able to bust through many of the walls in my life and live above them and live beyond them to achieve some of the success that I have had in this industry and in life. And in my spoken word book is really just a compilation of all of the poems and short stories I've written since I was a teenager. So I'm excited about that.
I love it. Well, look, the only thing that we didn't get to really talk about, and I know we're short on time, was how you and our good friend within the industry, a lot of people know Michael Nauman, you guys started in some capacity. I know it was titled something different years ago, but I think it's called Women in Insurance in Napa,
Yes.
abbreviated as WIN, W-I-N.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give me 30 seconds on that? Because any woman, I don't think you tell me, I don't think you have to be in one geographic segment or another to be a part of it. So maybe any of the ladies listening, help them understand why they might want to join you.
Absolutely. So Women in Insurance in Napa, this is a once-a-year event that me and my partner, Mike Nauman, host in Napa Valley. It's about a 2-day event. And when you think of networking, it's a different play on it. We call it, our overarching theme is fortuitous encounters. And we ask the women that are invited to come with no business cards, come really looking at making those deep connections with women in our industry. It's all about how we support each other as women, whether we are competitors in the industry, it doesn't matter. All of our titles and all of that goes to the wayside. It is left at the curb when we all come together, and we do about a day and a half of wine tasting and wonderful small bites and wonderful connecting and networking. It's just fantastic. There's about 24 women that get to come every year. So it's kind of a first come, first serve. And we'll be posting it out on LinkedIn when we start getting close to 2023 for Win 2023.
And you let Michael come, and he's not a woman that I know of. So
no, he's the only guy. I know fellas out there. I get messages from men often. I know you're one of them. I get these men that go, "When are you going to do something for us?" And all I ask Michael to do is when we do one for the men, I need to be the only woman on that trip. So.
All right, that's fair. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Well, it's listen, a wonderful time.
Lisa, it's always a pleasure catching up with you. It's been quite a little while, so I'm so honored and blessed that you were able to make it on the show. I've wanted to have you on for quite a while. Anyone who wants to reach out to Lisa and is not yet connected, she's very vocal and connected within LinkedIn, just like myself and many of you who are listening. So check it out. Obviously, her name is spelled right there on the show notes. Lisa Hutcherson, not complicated to find her. She and I are in sales, so we're not shy. So if you reach out, she's not going to be shy. And I would certainly encourage you, if you're not already connected, to go ahead and connect with her. I think you'll be very, very glad that you did. And as always, if you have any questions, thoughts, ideas, anything for a future show, if you have any questions for Lisa, hit her up. Otherwise, certainly put them right in the comments section below. If you're not already subscribed anywhere you consume, stream, or download podcasts, please do so. And if you like today's episode, please share it amongst your friends. And I'm telling you, get in touch with Lisa. You won't regret it. And look, Lisa, I just show up and have a conversation. We have some fun. We would have done this whether we were recording a podcast or not. I would have just talked to you. So I'm very grateful that I'm able to do this, but I can't do it all. So for everybody behind the scenes at the Rockstars Rocking podcast, I thank my whole production and editing team. Without them, I'd have nothing. So until next week, I always say, don't just have a great week, make it a great week. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Eric.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Rockstars Rocking podcast. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. And if you feel so inclined, please leave us a review. 5 stars would totally rock. Until next time, Rockstars, keep rocking.